this lady, who the police have dropped the charges against her, she was, as a Catholic woman, and not just any old Catholic, I noticed, she's actually part of the director, Miss Vaughn-Spruce. She's a director of anti-abortion group March for Life UK, has been standing outside, praying outside a clinic, and she's vowed to go on. Now, it's interesting because is this harassment or not? Let's talk about the what a buffer zone is first, and whether, how the police came to drop charges against her, Joseph.
Okay, so Trisha, good afternoon, and I think by now it's always a pleasure for me to be here. Public space protection orders, not specifically related to abortion clinics, although I seem to remember us discussing a story about a recent government announcement on this very topic. So clearly something that's going to attract further legislation according to those stories. These zones can be put in anywhere. An application has to be made, and criminal penalties can follow as a result of somebody conducting, I guess, a prohibited activity. And that could be kids loitering around, smoking cannabis. It could be people begging. It could be any one of a number of things that local people, that kind of blight, the type of antisocial behavior that people regard as nuisance-like. Okay. Right. So one has been put in force here. And you're right. You're straight into it, as always, Trisha. Isn't there a fine line sometimes between, in this case, prayer and protest? Free speech is important. So is also, I think we talked about it recently, didn't we? The right of people to undergo a personal medical treatment without being harassed. Okay. Yeah. And it all depends on the context. And this case is interesting because it really seems to tread a fine line and it's the type of thing that we could talk about all day, and not a whole 100 people, if we asked them, would be convinced of one argument or the other. Because
Joseph, let's show, we've got a clip. I want to show people because I think it's really pertinent to what you're saying about how people see all of this. Let's have a look. So there's the footage. They're asking her to step outside.
But you've said you're engaging in prayer, which is the offence.
It's silent prayer.
No, but you are still engaging in prayer. It is an offence.
I disagree.
Okay then. So you would rather that you be arrested and taken away than stand outside the exclusion zone? Is that what you're saying?
Are those the only two alternatives?
Yes.
I don't think I'm being part of
There we have it. So, as you said, and you touched upon, Joseph, it's a fine line. She's saying she's standing there with silent prayer, and now everybody who didn't know who's going to that clinic is certainly going to know that she's from that particular organisation and standing at March for Life UK.
Absolutely.
The question is it antisocial behaviour, I guess?
Okay, well, first of all, I think the officer's wrong, and that's played into her hands, because this is inching towards, isn't it? Her choice of where she decides to, quote unquote, pray, the choice of location, the fact she's an anti-abortion campaigner, the fact that she's been arrested for it at the same location last year before. Okay, so it's not the first incident. It points towards the possibility that there may be some kind of amateur legal gamesmanship going on. How far can I go over the line? But I can't see into her mind. More importantly, perhaps I can't see into her soul, given the subject matter. I think the officer's handling of it, however, has played into her hands. Of course, it's on body-worn camera, as everything is nowadays, probably from another officer. I assume that's where the footage has come from. And the officer says, yes, it is an offence to pray. I think in the circumstances, the practical offence, the practical effect of what she's doing may be that actually open to interpretation, although very difficult to prove, that in fact what she's trying to do is getting around those laws about direct harassment by being a very present and visible person at that particular location, albeit silent, in a kind of silent protest. But it's wrong to say that it's an offence to pray.
So, Joseph, what if, for instance, around a woman's refuge, you had a great big muscly guy or a man just standing outside a women's refuge saying, I'm praying for the women inside. And that meant any woman who had to go in and out the refuge had to go past them. So wouldn't that be a kind of similar situation?
All of these things are so finely balanced and depend on context, don't they? Because let's say, for example, that person was saying, I'm praying for all the people who go inside having left their husbands. Well, I think we'd be disgusted with that, wouldn't we? On the other hand, I'm praying for all the people who are inside having fled oppressive relationships.
Yeah, but you wouldn't care. You wouldn't care. You'd be in a refuge and there'd be a bloke standing outside, and with your trauma, it would read a certain way. So I'm looking at this woman. Now we know if people were, and as you just pointed out, she was been arrested for it before. You know that woman is from an anti-abortion group and is standing out there and praying. Now, people don't just tum walk into a clinic like that.
No,
there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of stuff going on from them. So isn't it just as intimidating to someone who's going to be a fragile mentally or emotionally as a chap standing outside a woman's refuge?
I think that could well be said. And at the same time, I think that the other argument and you know, and looking at what you might be able to prove and what she might say, well, she might well say, and I'm not advocating for this position, but there are souls of children, unborn children that are going up, and I am the only person praying for them as they expire. And why might not she have a right to do that? I'm not. So goes the argument, and that's why I think this is so divisive. My own view, well, she can probably do it elsewhere. I mean, if your prayer's calculated.
I don't think God says your prayer only matters if it's done within an exclusion zone. I mean, surely a church would be a better place. Love to know what our viewers and listeners think.